the kidney right here, again, renal pyramids. This is the one that contains all these, like, a lot of the nephrons are right here in the renal pyramid. Again, they're the ones that filter out blood to make that filtrate that eventually becomes urine. And then it ends up in this structure called a minor calyx. So notice that all these pyramids, these little points, they're like little udders that kind of squirt out this filtrate and urine into this minor calyces. And then it ends up in a major calyx, major and minor. This major calyx is bigger. And then it ends up at the renal pelvis. So notice that there's a little bump right here in the kidney, just like the lymph nodes. It's called a hilum. So it's like whenever you have like a bean-shaped structure, that little indentation, that's called a hilum. But the pelvis right here is in that part, that right here, in that little indentation in the kidney. And then it finally ends up in the ureter. Now, this is my schematic of it. So what do you have? Collecting ducts in the renal pyramids that collect all the urine from the nephrons. Then this dumps into minor calyces, and the singular is calyx. So calyx, calyces. And then urine goes this way, and then it drains into major calyces. And then from the major calyces, it ends up in the renal pelvis. So again, going from pyramids to minor calyces to major calyces, and then into the renal pelvis, then finally into the ureters. Okay. And let's look at the ureters. So notice that like a lot of the other tubes in your body, they have multiple layers. So what we have is transitional epithelia. So the thing about epithelia, if you were here last semester and remember things about like, oh, simple squamous or stratified columnar and all that. But transitional epithelia are special to the urinary system. And why do they call them transitional epithelia instead of stratified, instead of simple, instead of squamous, columnar, and cuboidal? Well, the thing about transitional epithelium is that they're very stretchy. So things like, just like elastic things, or if you have any like elastic band, or it's like rubber band, you can stretch it out and flatten it. So the thing about the transitional epithelia, if you start stretching it out, they kind of look more squamous and flat. But when they're not being stretched out, they actually look more cuboidal. Because this is why they're called transitional epithelia. Their shape changes depending on the amount of stress and stretch and distension in the ureter. And then you have lamina propria and then smooth muscles. So again, the ureters can do peristalsis. So they can move urine throughout their length. And then you have outer connective tissue right here. So again, to protect it and hold it in place. So again, now we go from kidneys to the ureters, and then finally to the bladder.